We just returned from Singapore where we shot our 3rd episode in the Origin series and we learned everything we could about chicken rice. Now we're back here in the studio and I'm going to show you how to make the very best version I think you can at home. Let's get stuck in. All right, first up, unsurprisingly, the chicken. So you want a good quality chicken. This is the base of all the flavor components and the rice and the broth. So spend some money on a good quality chicken. You want a relatively big bird if you're gonna serve 4 or 6 people. This is a kind of a smaller one. We're just gonna rub the outside with salt. So the reason you do this is so that the skin kind of tenses up and it kind of brines the outside. Now you can also wash the salt off if you want, but I think I learned that most people don't. I think in the video I made a while ago about this, on the short series, I did wash it off and a few people got up in the comments because they don't wash chicken. Anyway, season it relatively generously with salt, rub it all in, season the inside of the carcass, and we'll set that aside while we get our aromats ready. So to flavor the broth, we've got ginger, garlic, and spring onions. So the spring onions, we're gonna make the green sauce or the spring onion sauce out of this half, and we'll use the top half to flavor the broth. So cut those about there, put those to the side, and then just in half. The ginger, you can leave the skin on, run your knife through it, and then into a mortar and pestle, and just break it up a bit more, just to kind of get those oils and everything. And just like that, we're not looking to completely pound it, we're just smushing it up a bit. Similar with the garlic, if I can get it open. That's a big clove of garlic. Look at the size of that. Anyway, 3 cloves, well 3 of this size, maybe 4 if they're a bit smaller, and just break those up a little bit as well. To the pot. All right, we've got a large stock pot full of just water. I'm just gonna get those aromats in. And then this is optional, but I do encourage it, especially when you're not cooking 50 chickens at once, is a half a teaspoon of MSG. And the other thing that I like to do is to add a few more chicken wings, and that just amplifies the chicken flavor as well. You can also just use a chicken carcass, or you can just cook 2 or 3 chickens at the same time. So we've got this on a medium heat. What we're looking for is a little bit of steam to come off the water, but you don't want it rapidly boiling. What we're gonna do is try and really gently poach this chicken. But before we put the chicken in, there's a couple of things left to do, so let's go do that. What we wanna try and do is get as much chicken fat of the chicken as possible. Now, this chicken doesn't have much, which is, I guess it's an issue some people might have. There's a little bit here that I'm gonna take off. We're trying to harvest this because we kind of need it. Now, I do have some more, which we'll use, and there's other options for kind of getting chicken fat, but there's often like a really big deposit of fat here. So just cut that off and leave it to one side. And then it really helps if you get one of these, which is a poultry hook. They're pretty affordable. You can get them on Amazon. You should be able to find them at your local Asian supermarket, but they make this process a lot easier. If you can't, you can do it without, but it just makes your life easier. Turn your chicken on its back, and you just want to prick it underneath each of the wings. Make sure it's on there nice and firmly so it doesn't come off, and that is ready for the poaching pot. Before we put it in there, we're gonna get this fat rendering as well. So we've got a small pot, place your chicken fat in there. Here's some I have already from another recipe. So if you don't have heaps of chicken fat, don't stress too much. You could use duck fat from the supermarket. You could use some lard if you really wanted to, or you can just use peanut oil, and that's what I'm going to use to kind of, bulk this out of it. So we're going to use this hot oil for both the spring onion ginger dressing and also for the rice. So we're just going to put that on a nice low heat to let that little bit of fat render out. So our water is starting to steam, but it's not boiling, and we're going to put it into the hot water. Let the cavity fill up, pull it out, and we're gonna dunk it 3 times. And the reason we do that is because you don't want the water in the cavity to stay the whole time. You want it to fill up with hot water, and that way it should cook a bit more evenly. All right, and then at that point you can just leave it. Now I like to be a bit tricky. You don't have to do this, but I have this little magnetic hook that I hang there, and then I let it hang in the water. And what that does is it stops it hitting the bottom, so you won't kind of lose any of that skin. So we leave that like that. We're gonna cook this size bird for about 45 minutes, 42, 43 minutes to be exact. But at about 20 minutes, we'll flip it over and make sure we're cooking the other side perfectly through. But let's make the green sauce. All right, for the green sauce, the ginger and garlic. Ginger and garlic? No, ginger and spring onion. Take a knob of ginger and we're gonna peel it. So it's interesting, we didn't see this in any of the stalls, but whenever I talk to anyone about making this dish at home, they always have it. I'm not sure why it's not in any of the stores. I guess it's kind of the way the dish has evolved, that the chili sauce has been more adopted. We're gonna make both the chili sauce and this green sauce. I really like this green sauce. I think it adds a really nice, fresh fragrantness. Fragrantness, is that a word? A nice freshness to the dish. So a piece of ginger. I'm gonna cheat and actually grate this ginger into here instead of just smashing it with the microplane, because it'll just take forever. And then spring onions, kind of roughly chop them. We're gonna pound them anyway, but the smaller you cut them now, the less work you're gonna have to do in the mortar and pestle. To that, we add a teaspoon of salt, maybe a quarter of a teaspoon of sugar, or half I should say, and we pound it all up. So once you get like a relatively fine paste like that, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit, you know, a few little bit of lumps in there, but you want it to be pretty pasty. We're gonna pour in about 2 tablespoons of the hot chicken fat. Stir that around. And there you go, first sauce done. Set that aside, ready for our chicken. Now to make the classic chili sauce. So I'm gonna use bird's eye chilies, garlic, ginger, lime juice, and then we're gonna use some of the stock from the chicken. So I'll get this to a certain point, and then last minute, once we put the chicken out, I'll just add the chicken stock so it's nice and flavorful. But same as before, I'm just gonna peel this ginger and microplane it in. Garlic, microplane in also. And the chilies, I'm using bird's eye chilies. I like it pretty spicy, but you can just use the normal long red chilies that you can get as well. I'm gonna go with 6 of these, and I'm gonna cut them up first, and then I'll pound them with the mortar and pestle after. The knife needs a sharpener. Then some salt and some sugar. Now I'm gonna pound those chilies up before we add the lime juice, and then we'll finish it with some of the hot chicken stock at the end. It's worth mentioning you can do it in the blender, but I do encourage you to do it like this. It's kind of, it has a better flavor. I don't know why, it just does. All right, to that, some lime juice. Probably should have squeezed my lime before I cut it. If you can get your hands on calamansi, the flavor's probably a bit better for this, but they're kind of pretty hard to find here. I'm just gonna start with half a lime, and then once we've mixed in the chicken stock, I'll taste for seasoning, and we might need that other half. But that's it, let's see how our chicken is going. This bird has been cooking for 20 minutes now, so we're just gonna have a little look-see. Try and flip her over. Just needs a helping hand. Lie on its back. There we go. All right, we're gonna give that another 25-ish minutes. We should be good to go. Arguably the most important part, the rice. So jasmine rice, about 600 grams I like. Shallots, 3 of them. We don't soak the rice, but we do rinse the rice. So I'm just gonna slice these shallots and some garlic. Then we'll just run our knife through it and slice the garlic as well. Doesn't matter if it's a little bit chunky, I kind of like it a little bit chunky. And interestingly, most of the rices that we had in the hawker halls didn't actually have garlic, well, it didn't have prominent pieces of garlic and shallot in it. But Andrew and Karina's did have it, and I really liked it. And doing some research post, it appears that a lot of home cooks put garlic and shallot in their rice, and I think it's definitely worthwhile doing. Okay, so we get another pot onto the heat, and we'll add our chicken fat to that pot. Don't stress too much about the little bits. You can filter them out if you want, but I don't bother. So we're gonna saute our shallots and garlic in that fat with just a little pinch of salt. Don't over season it, because we're gonna use this broth to cook the rice, and that should be pretty well seasoned. Stir that around. While that's sauteing, let's wash our rice. So like normal, when you wash your rice, cold water, and you want it to run clear effectively. Not like crystal clear, but you don't want it to be milky anymore. We'll try and drain most of that water off. You can see here our garlic and shallots are sauteing nicely, and then we're going to add our rice to this pot. I'm going to make sure that fat is covering all grains of rice before we add some of the chicken stock. Add our washed rice, stir that through before we add it back to our rice cooker pot. So we'll level that out. I'm going to add our chicken stock. So like normal, you want to cover your rice about a knuckles deep. Now, it's going to be hot, so don't put your finger in it. And then into the rice cooker. Oh, look, if you didn't know, I have been writing a cookbook, and it's available right now in the link below. All right, I've got a bowl that's gonna fit the chicken with lots of ice. I'm gonna fill that with cold water. Chicken comes out. and straight into the cold water. And what the cold water does is it gives us that gelatinous layer underneath the skin but between the flesh. So we're gonna leave it there for 10 minutes and we'll just kind of turn it every 2 or 3 minutes because the water effectively around the outside of the chicken starts to warm up. So you kind of need to just agitate it slightly so that the water stays nice and cold. While our chicken's cooling, it's time to finish our chili sauce. So we just need a ladle or half a ladle of the chicken stock, just to the consistency we want. So you want it wet, but you don't want it like soupy wet, if that makes sense. That's probably about bang on. Let's have a taste. Ooh, definitely doesn't need any more lime. I'm gonna add a little bit more sugar though. Delicious, savory, spicy, nice and tart from the lime, a little bit of sweetness. What is not to like about that? Let's get that in a bowl and set it aside. All right, now we're gonna hang our chicken. Just gonna let it drip dry for a second or two. Then we're gonna brush it with sesame oil. And that just kind of stops the skin from drying out too much. Ooh, there's a little piece of something. A little bit of garlic. Oh no, I lost my handle. Let that rest. Once our rice is finished cooking, it's probably got another 15 minutes. We can start carving that up and we're good to go. Our chicken is sufficiently rested. We'll take our poultry hooks out and then you carve it very similar to, well, I carve it similar to how you'd carve a chook, a roast chook. Take the legs off first. So run your knife, find the joint, push it out. Now you want to keep the skin attached as much as possible. It should be pretty tender, so it won't take too much convincing to pull apart. Same on the other side. You can take the crown off and then cut it with the bone on, but I prefer to cut it with the bone off. I think it's just easier to eat. So run your blade down the sternum, as close to the frame as you can, and then take that piece off with the wing. Simply repeat that on the other side. Then to cut this, I cut the drumstick off the thigh, like so. That's the piece that I like the most. I'm going to slice the breasts. A little seasoning to pour over the top, especially when you're serving it kind of family style like this. So take some of your chicken broth and then just season it with a little bit of light soy sauce, a little bit more sesame oil, and pour that over. Finish with a little bit of coriander, and then the classic slices of cucumber. And then we serve it with our chili sauce and our green scallion sauce, some of the broth with some spring onions on there, and of course the rice. There you go, my version of Hainanese chicken rice. And the best bit about making these videos, the eating. I like to get a little bit of both sauces, some of that rice on there. Yum. I know some people look at this dish and can't get over the fact that it's so pale in color, but it truly is one of the most delicious chicken dishes out there when it's done right. Definitely try and get a fattier bird if you can find one. I think that's why I haven't quite nailed my gelatinous layer, and also making sure that when you cool it down in the ice water, it is really lots of cold ice water. Anyway, that's it for our Asian section of Origins. We're actually about to head off in about 10 days to film the next series in the US. Can't wait to bring that to you, but we'll have recipes until that comes out anyway. Like this video if you took anything from it, subscribe if you're not, and we'll see you next week for another recipe. Peace.